Hi, everyone. I'm Ina Fried, Chief Technology Correspondent at Axios and author of our daily AI Plus newsletter. If you don't get it, go to axios.com/newsletters. I'll be in your inbox. It'll be great. With me is the incomparable Julie Sweet from Accenture. Julie, it's really good to have you here because I think, everyone, I don't think there's any debate. I'm not even going to ask people to raise hands that AI is big. It's going to change everything. That's what they're spending a lot of time thinking about. It's the how that gets everyone stuck. And last year, y'all did this great thing. We wrote about it. It was like a boot camp, kind of, here's what you need to know about generative AI. We were talking, you're saying companies kind of understand the technology. The big question now is, how do they actually incorporate it into what they do? And I really, personally, and I don't generally feel for businesses. They do fine. They make lots of money. But I do kind of feel for companies because the technology is changing so fast. And businesses are made up of humans, and we only change at a different pace, and it's not the same. How do businesses possibly keep up, and what are the recommendations? I'm sure you're hearing from CEOs that come to you and say, what on earth do I do?
Well, it's a great question. First of all, it's great to be here. Thank you. And what's interesting is if you can contrast last year before we get to kind of the how, is last year we were doing workshops, really trying to make sure everyone understood the power of AI. And last year, agentic digital agents was not the buzz it is now, right? So two things happened over the last year. On the one hand, people do really get it now. Like, we don't need to, we're not doing those workshops this year, right? Instead, we're showcasing actual examples of AI creating value at scale, because that's what everyone's now saying, okay, we get it, but how do you make it actually work? On the other hand, the technology has gotten more and more complicated in a year. And it's those two things that make it so hard, because on the one hand, the technology is getting better and better, but then you have to keep up with it, and you have to say, am I creating the right platform for like what's coming next? And on the other hand, actually, if you look under the covers as to why the companies who are getting value out of it are getting value, it's not about the technology. It's because those companies have been willing to really change the way they work, and I'll give you some examples of that. They're changing their talent, and in addition to the really cool AI technology, every company that's really scaling and getting real value now has been investing in years in the prerequisites of technology like the cloud and the data. And so, all of you came here and had to book a hotel. Like, in the hotel industry, there's now some real examples that are going to change your experience. It probably didn't change your experience for Davos.
It's not going to help you get a spot in Davos.
It is not going to help you here.
Other travel.
Yes, right? But so like Radisson Hotels now has always done a great job and done a lot of digital and personalization. But now when you go to book a ski vacation, they are able to show you pictures of the resort in real time, knowing that you actually ski versus someone else who's going on a ski vacation is booking it, and they really like the spa. And so what comes up for them are like the pictures of the spa, right? Completely different experience, right? When you're now buying a car, working with a global automobile maker, we've had like you're able to like build cars for a while, but now when you go to build your car, they know, well, you bought these kinds of seats and you like this kind of thing, and so you're starting without all of these names and confusion, massively simplifying. And these companies are getting real results, like numbers that actually are material and matter, right? Both of these companies, though, have been investing for a long time in digital, and when they looked at this, it completely changed like how their marketing department worked. They're getting 50% more productivity in marketing, which means they completely reorganized it to use the tools differently. And so when you think about the how, right, of course you have to understand the technology, and that's hard, and you have to partner, and that's difficult. But the biggest how is actually understanding that the value comes in, understanding your business processes, how your talent has to change, and being willing to change. And that can be the hardest piece.
Without asking you to totally name and shame, what are some things that aren't working? Give us some examples of some things you've seen either from clients before they came to you or things that you tried that didn't work out? Because even the best, not everything works out. You guys are fabulous. What isn't working with AI?
The number one problem is when companies are not willing to actually change the way they work. So what do I mean by that? We sometimes say that it gives you more coffee time, because Gen AI in particular tends to not take out an entire job. It will change tasks. And most companies are not able to look at their talent and say, well, if these tasks are eliminated, so these 10 people have now saved, how do I rework this department so that maybe I now need 8 and I free up 2 to do something else? Like sales is a great example. There's so much you can do in field sales and consumer goods because almost 50% of that job is actually administrative. But when you free up that time, you have to then think about like, okay, well, I now need, what are those people going to do with that time? Am I going to do less? Am I going to redeploy more? And if they're not doing administrative work, which I've been hiring for, do they have the skills to now build better relationships? That requires a whole different way of thinking about skills, about HR, about recruiting, about the business strategy. None of that has to do with the underlying technology that enabled it.
One of your rivals actually put it really well at DLD, saying the biggest beneficiaries so far have been the dogs of software developers, because people are getting home 20 minutes earlier and getting to walk the dog. And it really is, I mean, it's a funny point, but it highlights that, you know, and I think it's also the flip side of that is why companies are hesitant to keep writing giant checks. One of the things we've been reporting is a lot of the software makers, Microsoft and Google, had, you know, initially positioned their business as pay us an extra $30 per month, get this business Copilot, and they're now doing pricing things where they're saying, okay, we're going to raise Office or raise Google Workspace by a couple bucks and give it to everyone, because what they're hearing is, it's not that companies are saying, look, $30 a month per worker, if we get a little bit more out of them, you can make that pay off. But at the same time, it's a big check. And it's a big check when you can't say, I know I'm going to get this. I assume you're also hearing that from CEOs on the cost-conscious side?
Yeah, well, I mean, there isn't really an industry today that's not cost-conscious. It may be for different reasons, right? So the energy industry is doing better and has to invest trillions of dollars for the energy transition, right? So versus consumer goods where gross margins are pressured and they can't get pricing. So every industry has costs, and IT budgets are not changing. It's even though the value is there, people are not saying, well, therefore I'm going to double what I'm spending, right? They're reevaluating, and that's where I think the technology companies are recognizing that there are constraints to adoption around cost right now until companies are where they need to be. Most companies today are not AI ready. I mean, we estimate that about 10% of, say, the G2000 actually have the data and the infrastructure that they could, if they wanted to, take AI across the company. So think about all the investments that have to be done just to get ready. I also think, though, that there's a thoughtfulness as people are starting to say, we've got a lot of examples, but when I think about scaling, they're starting to understand the new capabilities they need to have. Like, for example, reinventing HR. So first of all, if Gen AI is not going to replace whole roles but tasks, then you have to look at your people from a skills lens. Almost no companies in the world have skills as the primary currency for HR. We do at Accenture. I have almost 800,000 people. We have a skills database. I can tell you how many people have Gen AI, how many people know SAP, how many people with this industry, and what the skills are so that we can upskill and change. But that's a complete different way of doing HR. Then there's, of course, digital agents. Those are digital employees. They actually have to be onboarded. They have to be trained with your data. They'll have job titles. They have to have guardrails like compliance because they're going to be doing tasks that humans did, and they have to follow the same policies. That's a totally different way of thinking about technology because they have to follow things that your human employees are following. And then on top of that, change. How do you get comfortable? We just published a blog today about using digital agents in marketing and the journey that is from the lens of our chief marketing officer, from the lens of talent and change, and then from the lens of technology. what we found was that one of the best ways to get people excited about having someone help them in their work was the feedback loop, because we created the digital agent so that the person who's now being augmented by them can provide continuous feedback. And for our employees, when they realized that they could give feedback, the agent would learn, and their job was getting easier and easier so they could focus on things that they want to focus on. Like for marketing, we're now getting campaigns 30 to 40% faster to market, taking out a lot of the stuff that our marketing people didn't want to do so they can spend more time. But what was key to the change was not me telling them that. It was, wait a minute, this agent is someone, it's almost like I can tutor them and they're going to get better and better. And that was really exciting. That took a very different way. That was not taking a playbook on like, let me train you how to do an agent.
I want to talk about agents. I want to really dive into that because that's this year's buzzword. How many people have heard more than they want to hear? How many people have heard the word agent more times than they would care to say? And how many people actually think they have a good handle on what an agent is or what it's going to do for them? Yeah, that's where I think we are. So talk about what it means in terms of real world examples. And also, I guess before we even talk about what it means, I mean, agents basically, Copilot helps a human being work better, work faster. There's only so much you can augment a human. So the appeal of agents is you've got the computers themselves doing tasks semi-autonomously with some level of human oversight. I guess my first question, are we really ready for that? Like, it doesn't feel like on the technology side, and then we'll get on the people side, but on the technology side, is the technology really good enough to be set free to be an agent?
So, let me tell you a real example from 2 nights ago. So, as you imagine, when the CEO reaches out to the general counsel and says, hey, I need you to have someone go talk to these guys, and we need to, we need to coach our team on like not sharing any confidential information. Like everyone jumps, right? So it was incredible. Our intellectual property lawyer has built an agent and within seconds generated the talking points for the senior leader that they needed to coach, because this had to happen very quickly. And that was done with an agent. And I'm a former lawyer, always a lawyer, I guess.
Recovering.
Right, a recovering lawyer. So my general counsel says, you got to see this. And he sends it to me. We used to work together at a law firm. And he sends it to me. And like, this was done like from the time I asked, within like an hour, I was getting these incredible talking points for which I had absolutely no changes, which is unusual as a lawyer. And you're like, okay, like now, so think about your job. If you could have someone who's super smart, who learns from you, take the most mundane things and be able to do it and be more responsive. Because at the end of the day, that wasn't like rocket science. And yet, in the old world, someone would have sat down, they would have asked, they said, oh, let's go get some, let's pull the last ones, right? Let's like do it. And it would have taken longer.
It's a great example. At the same time, to me, that's like maybe a mini agent or lowercase a to me, where it's still providing information back to a human being, it's not taking action. Is that what we're really talking about this year with agents? Because where I get worried is I think of an agent as it's going to go off and book that hotel. It's going to take that action. And then even scarier is pretty soon an agent's talking to an agent. And that's where I feel like maybe the technology isn't there. Maybe it's
and so it all depends on the use case, right? Because the technology is growing. So we're using agent, remember I talked about agents in marketing. So we're using it today. So when we would put out something, a new thought leadership piece, which I hope you all read, right? We would have someone who does the quality. There's someone who looks at it, says, is it really a differentiated message? What are our competitors doing? It's a several-week process, right? We have agents who are talking to each other, right? Who do quality, who go out and do the analytics, who give a score to whether it's differentiated. And now our marketing people are spending their time on getting the right content, working with that, and then within minutes being told, well, yeah, no, that's differentiated, that's not. And that is all taking those 14 agents talking to each other, interacting. The technology's there for now. Where are things going? So we just announced with Keon, which is a supply chain solution company that think about like things in warehouses, right? Robotics in warehouses and automation. We just announced the first of its kind use of physical AI with agents that can sense gravity, that can do this, that are going to cut down the use of manual labor in warehouses and create more safety. That's brand new, right? So is that ready to go? No, but it's being implemented. It's going to be learning. So the technology is there already to do this, and it's going to move really fast. What's not really ready is the data to feed it and the organizations to actually operate differently. When you ask about challenges, one of the things is we still do most use cases are single function use cases because companies are not looking across. And the value comes from actually reimagining how you're working. And so I think that the technology is and will be ready faster than the organizations are ready to change necessarily, which of course is what we work a lot on.
So we have about a minute left. Last year I came away from Davos and I wrote a piece saying AI, autonomous agents are the next big thing. So I feel good about myself.
You should feel very good.
What are we going to be talking about next year? Where are things headed?
Physical AI and robotics will be next year.
You heard it here first. I also want to give you a chance. Give us all some homework. What's a good use of an hour or two if I want to be smarter about AI?
Actually go use it. So, there's easy ways to build agents now on the public platforms. And yes, they're little a agents, but it begins to actually understand, because one of the most important things is we are going to change the way we operate. And as leaders, if we don't, we will not be able to bring our people along. And I think the reason why you have to touch and feel it yourself is we need to be able to invest in our people and help them take the journey so that this is a net benefit for our employees. And this is one of those things where it can't be bottom up. If the leaders don't change, we won't invest enough. We won't bring our people along the journey. And for that, you have to understand it at a much deeper level than we currently have our leadership.
Great advice, as always. Thank you so much, Julie Sweet.
Thanks for having me.